Hello everybody, welcome to a new video of Gain Speed Show. So today is a very nice day. Today we're going to start up the M113 V8 Turbo for the first time. So there's been a lot of stuff done the last few weeks. I'm going to tell you all about it, but first, I'm not going to make it a very long story. First I'm going just to try to start this car, so I will put the camera down. A friend of mine is coming and he can have a look if there's something leaking or anything else going on in front of the engine. I will be in the car and then do the first adjustments. So yeah, so car's fully ready. I will lower it as much as possible. I will leave it on the lift, I think, because if there's something wrong I can put it up and have a look. So yeah, everything is tested. It only started, I cranked the engine already just for oil pressure, so that's also a lot big story I will tell you all about. But it got oil pressure, timing is correct, already checked, not the exact timing so it sees the home and the crank signal, so that's good and it's on the right point. I have to check if I have, for example, 10 degrees, if it's really 10 degrees on the crank, so that's something I'll need to check later on. But for the rest, yeah, it should fire up. So let's go, let's have a look. So, car is running. So I'm very happy with it, and also the way it's running. It's very quiet, no weird sounds. You only hear the sounds that you want to hear. Just some clicking of the injectors, and yeah, it's just perfect. So I run it now 2 times for about 45 minutes. Got some heat cycles in it, so it cycled at first in the fan cycle, just like I wanted it, with a pulse width modulated. So I had a solid state relay in here that cycled from 50 to 100%. but in some kind of way the ECU is giving a signal, but the solid state relay is not working anymore. So I saw a temperature of 104 degrees in the sensor, so that's outlet of the engine through the thermostat, so that is not that big of a problem. When it's going to 110, 115, then it's a real big problem, but 105 is not really that bad. So I switched off the engine and then overlapped the circuit and then just put the fuse in, and then it will run constantly, and then I have to put do the cycle of the fan by hand. So for the rest it runs pretty good. So I want to mention that this is the first time I'm doing this by myself, so don't have any use of any tuner or anything else. That was here when I started this engine for the first time. So for me it's all new, so I also put the program and all the inputs in there with some help of the tuner that's going to also adjust this car. So I sent him my file and he checked everything. So and gave me some advice what to change. So that's very good of him. You will see more of him in the next few videos when we're going to dyno the car and also do the street tune. So it will be pretty fun. So at first I had also the trigger set up the way around, so I could not get so the signal was needed to be falling and it was rising. So people who know more about the signals know what I mean. So it does not see the right signal. That was the first thing. The first thing that I wanted to start was that it was just igniting just a big bang in the exhaust, and I already thought it was pretty familiar. I had the same thing with my 190 V12 in the past, and also the home signal was you have to put the signal in where your home signal is, before top dead center or after the trigger, before it reaches top dead center. So it was the way around. Change that, and then the car fired up immediately. So within 2 hits it was running. So that was very good. So let it run for 45 minutes the first time. Tried to get had to get a lot of fuel out of it because it was running very rich. And then got it to idle pretty good. It was just idling by itself. And yeah. Then to get the VE map programmed is not as easy as everybody thinks, but it was running okay. But the thing that I had after it is that the transmission needed 4 liters more of oil. So there's now 11 liters of automatic fluid in it, because there's also a separate oil cooler also. So it was 11 liters. I had 7 liters in it already. Yeah, for the rest it was running pretty good. After the car cooled down, so the next morning I changed some things in the VE map to let it run easier when I put it on the gas or put it in gear, because this transmission, when it's has not the correct settings in it, it was going very hard in gear and it will drop the RPMs like 300 or 400 RPMs down. So that needs to be that issue needs to be solved. There is an option in this off-gear transmission that you can do it softer, but you can also don't do it not too soft, but then it will not go in gear anymore. So I'm going to have a look into that. Also what I needed to do is put the stroboscope light and check the how you say that, ignition value that I have in the ECU. So I had 15 degrees before top dead center, the ignition on cylinder 1. I had to check it. It was 9 degrees off. So it was in reality it was running 24 degrees before top dead center. So that was also giving me the case why I could not get the RPM level down, because if you lower the ignition value, so more to 0 before top dead center, you will lose a little bit of power. So, and that was also when I got the ignition value to 15 degrees before top dead center, and it really was 15 degrees before that center. It was really lowering already 200 RPMs in value, so that was much better. So tomorrow I can do another check and get the cold start better in there, and so on. I'm going to try to get it idle perfectly also when I put it in gear. And the reason why I want to do this, because I have to go to a near shop here, and they have to do the alignment of the car. So I have to go there, but then the car needs to be able to run in drive without falling out and still having a good lambda value and not too lean or too rich. So I want to get it a little bit more perfect. So today the car already ran for another 45 minutes, but not really any problems. I got some small leaks on some cooling lines. So I had a leak on this cooling, this just a stop, there's no pipe on it. Normally this connection is what I have down there. But so I blocked this one off. I had a leak on here, and there's a small pipe that's going through the wheel well. That one was leaking on the second weld, and I welded it, put a small spot weld on it, and now it's completely leak free. So for the rest, I had some little smoke coming from the exhaust, which was pretty normal because there underneath here is the ceramic wool that's glued on the exhaust, so that glue will burn and then vaporizes out of the engine bay. So most of that is now gone. The smell is a little bit here in my workshop, a little bit, but not too bad. So for the rest, it idles very good. So when I start it, so I almost straight away can put my foot off the gas and it will idle by itself. So that's very, very nice. So for the rest, not many leaks, so yeah, that's pretty perfect. So before getting to this point of starting the car, I had also issues with oil pressure. So I want to mention this because it's pretty important, and maybe I'm going to make a different video for it. Because, I'm going to sit a little bit more here because a little bit more light. Because this engine was fully rebuilt, so it was fully in assembly loop, also the oil pump. But the problem is, and I also did not know it, but I had no spark plugs in it. I've got a starter motor on it, I got everything connected, so the engine could not build any oil pressure. So I know from some information I got from different guys that work on these engines that it can take up to 2 minutes to get oil pressure in these kind of engines. So that was also the thing that I thought, I'm going to start it and then we will have a look if I can get oil pressure. So it's fully in assembly loop, no plugs in it, so it cannot build any compression. So that's the best way to do it. So I started it for two times. First for I think 1 minute 45, still no oil pressure. Let it cool down, check the oil level, still the same. Yeah, nothing with it. Did it again, still no oil pressure. Did it another time, still no oil pressure. So I think I started in total 4 times 1 minute. It was 4 times 1 minute, still no oil pressure. So I called a friend of mine. He has a Mercedes workshop, and he said to me, yeah, I had it in the past also. You need to fill up the oil pump before you're going to start it, otherwise you cannot get any oil pressure. So I thought that was pretty bad, but I was pretty happy that I had the engine fully in the assembly loop. So I checked all the cylinders with a borescope, nothing, it looked all pretty fine. So I took the pan out of the underneath the bottom of the engine, and I have a picture of the oil pump. I got the oil pump out of the engine, looked all pretty clean, the engine bay. So before of course drained the oil. But the oil pump was fully dry. I have a picture of it, you can see below the video on my website, I will place it there. It was fully dry. So what I did, the bucket where I left the oil in, it was like 6 liters of oil, 6 or 7 liters of oil out of the oil pan. I put the pump in it and pumped it by hand, and then the oil came out, all the air bubbles were out. And also there is a check valve on the pressure side of the pump going into the engine. When I pressed that valve, there was oil coming out of it. So that's pretty logical because I filled it from the top, from the oil filter casing. So I filled the pump, built everything back together, and again, so with a full oil pump on the pressure side, so filled up the whole system again and started again. And within 20 seconds I had 3.5 bar oil pressure. So I started through like for 1 minute again, and then let it cool down for 15 minutes, start it again for 1 minute, and I got full oil pressure. I checked all the lines, I checked the cooler, everything was full with oil. So be aware, if you rebuild an engine like this, or if you have an engine that's very long standing, check the oil pressure. I know on these engines, only the versions with the SAS system, cylinder outsheltering system, this, you have an oil pressure sensor. All the other engines don't have an oil pressure sensor. So if you have an engine that's standing for a very long time, or is it just for the winter, put an oil pressure gauge on it and check the oil pressure, because you will damage your engine. And it's not that it does not happen, it happens. Because I heard it has also happened with Mercedes in the workshops, with some cars, that they changed everything and cleaned everything underneath the engine, took the oil pump off or anything else, and then put it back and forgot to do it. And it's in the manual that you should do it. So learn this lesson and don't start it without knowing if you got oil pressure. So in my case it went pretty good because it was fully in the assembly loop and I don't have any spark plugs in it. So it was not building compression, I didn't start it. So that's the best thing that happened in this case. So in my case also I started another 2 minutes later on, so another few times, because I want to pump the oil through the engine. And I also, with the first startup, don't have any valve noise, because I already filled up all the the clearance elements for the valves. And they were all empty, because I pressure is all empty when I rebuilt the cylinder head. So yeah, pretty perfect for me in this case. I'm really happy, it runs very good. I'm thinking running it another few times to get the tune better. For idling, that's the stuff, and then so maybe after another 2 times starting it and running it for a half an hour, I'm going to change the oil filter, because I'm sure after a rebuild you will find some small particles. I'll run in particles and then put a new oil filter in it, and then we'll see later on. Because it runs pretty good. If I have it idling here in the garage, it's running 93, 94 degrees oil temperature. And it runs, I have an 87 degrees thermostat in it. So it runs between 95, 98, sometimes 100 and 89 degrees Celsius temperature. That's what I'm running it. So that's the first what I'm leaving it on. And when I'm running it on the street, I can see the real live temperature, what this engine wants. So what is the cycle temperature of the thermostat? I think it will be around 89 degrees. And then I will put the temperature of the fan like on 95. That's what I think I'm going to do. So yeah, so pretty happy with it. I have to fix some issues, but they are not big. They can be much bigger. So what is the plan up till this point? So the most important things to do before I can get this car to get an alignment of the chassis is I need to fix the running of the fan, so it can run in its own temperature cycle, so the fan will go off and go on. So I have to have a look if this relay is really broken. Another thing is that it will pull like 20 Newton meters of power, and I got it on a small fuse in the car, and that fuse is getting hot. So the plastic of the fuse is, yeah, it's getting soft. So I'm going to take that fuse and the wiring out of there, because the wiring is thick enough, there's no problem with it. And because this fan is, I think it's pulling 22 amps maximum. You also can hear the engine pulling it down in RPMs. The wiring is for 30 amps or something, and it's fused on 25. And the fuse is staying okay, but it's getting hot. So I'm going to put a bigger fuse in it, so in size, so you got not the chance to running the connectors that they are running at high temperature. I'm thinking of getting a different relay in there, so it's only running on full power for the time being. I'm going to test that relay, because it was pretty nice, because I had it switched on 89 degrees till 93, running on 50%, and then going up in ramping up in RPM. So it was running already on like 30 or 40%. It can cool down the engine already in the garage, so that's pretty good. So the fan is big enough for the summer. So the next thing what I'm going to do behind that thing is putting the springs in, because there are no springs and it's just on hydraulic suspension. So get the springs in and get it on level that I can lower it and raise it, but I can get it so at the low level that I want to have the car aligned. So then I still can lower it from that point and I can raise it. So I have to put the springs in it. Also another thing is to get this car started again and trying to get the tune better. And if I don't get it any better, then I'm going to get some help from the tuner, and he's going to help me get this car running better than it does now, and then we can do the alignment check. And if that everything is done, we're going to do a street test and get the tune on the streets for like 80% of the power, so not on the dyno, so it's running good, has good emission values. Then I can get the road legal check, and the so it's road legal in the Netherlands, and after that we're going to do a dyno. So it's now first getting everything checked, and yeah, that's up till this point. So yeah, and of course wheel wells need to be tightened up because they're just hanging on, lights need to go in, hoods need to get the grill, the hatch needs to be possible to close so it's safe to run on the roads, bumpers need to go on, all that kind of stuff, so I have some work to do. So yeah, I hope we will get somewhere in the next month and a half to get it so at a point that I can drive it on the street, and then we can get all the checks done so it's fully legal. So I'm already pretty happy because the engine runs very good after the rebuild. That's also, yeah, it's always a very, I say that, stressful moment if you done everything correct. So up till this point it's all very nice. So I hope you like this video about this project. If you got any questions about this subject, leave some comments below the video. And don't forget to have a look on jenspeedshop.com, the link is over here. And see you for next time. Bye bye.